Hello everyone, this is Jebro, and today we're going to talk about the Thief and the build, which is being used in Pro League and variations. At the moment I'm showing you the EU variation of this build. The NA version, which Magic Toker is playing, has got a couple of differences, and there are differences you can bring into this build, which are going to help your survival and whatnot, which is kind of the main differences between the NA and EU builds and Pro League at the moment. So, let's start off first of all with the weapon set, and that's going to be short bow with dagger and pistol. Of course, offers up a lot of utility as well as mobility, stealth, as well as a lot of damage. So what we're going to go for here is Sigil of Bloodlust over on the short bow as well, grabbing extra power. We got leeching here at the moment. Now obviously, you know, the second sigil here is people using different things. I think Levin was using generosity, for example, but dagger pistol, it seems to be mainly air and also for fire as well. Then we've got Rune of Scholar for, well, mainly EU. Actually, we saw Magic Toker playing DareDevil rune in the first week back after the April 19th patch, and then Marauder's Amulet as well. So obviously, you know, this is going to be a fairly bursty build. Fairly bursty. This is a bursty damage build. It's got a bit more survivability. It can cope with situations now in the game. So we actually are seeing this kind of coming into the meta a little bit. It's one of those pickup classes. Really, it's one of the. It's if you can play Thief quite well and you remember how to play it quite well, then you're going to be very effective. So we're seeing it in unranked queue at the moment, and we'll see it in ranked queue. Absolutely no doubt about that whatsoever. So, let's have a look at the traits quickly. So it's going to be Deadly Arts, Trickery, and also DareDevil. So I'm mainly showcasing the build. I'm not going to talk about it all too much, but we're going to talk about it as much as possible. So, a couple of things here. Let's go back into Deadly Arts. Of course, we've seen these lines before, but we are going to go through the main traits. So Mug, obviously, do damage and gain life when stealing. This attack cannot critically hit enemies. So obviously, you know, gaining life steal as well as putting out some nice damage. Obviously, Lotus Poison, that's just an obvious one. Panic Strike, don't know if you remember ages ago, before all this trait line business came out, Panic Strike was like amazing. So of course, you know, striking a foe that is below the health threshold and mobilize them. Mobilize is very, very good. You can lock down your opponents, of course. And then here's the major difference between some of the builds at the moment on the EU and NA is whether or not you go for improvisation to give you a little bit more utility. As you can see, you can use stolen items twice. One random skill category is immediately recharged when you steal, or you can go for executioner, so you can go for a ton more damage, and that is exactly what the name of this trait insinuates. So of course, when they're below that health threshold, you will do a lot more damage. So there's different choice between these two at the moment. So utility and kind of more maybe survival, and compared to more damage, more DPS coming out from yourself. Trickery then. Let's go back into this build. Obviously, stealing gives you initiative. That's very useful. Thrill of the Crime, which has always been the one really, which is the main, you know, nothing else is really chosen here, to be honest, because you're able to grab yourself quite a few of those nice boons. Obviously, Fury and Might going to increase your damage, Swiftness, your mobility. Preparedness, obviously, maximum initiative by 3, always want to have that. Bountiful Theft, so Steal grants you and all nearby allies Vigor. You rip boons from your targets and grant them to nearby allies. So obviously Steal is a very, very important skill for the Thief. It's a gap closer. It obviously gives you another ability on your F2. And, you know, it's going to be able to give you Vigor here as well. And ripping those boons off is going to be important for survivability. Also to take stability away from people as well. But we'll talk about, you know, what can counter this as well in a moment. Lead attacks, obviously, you know what that says. Sleight of hand, so stealing also dazes the target, reducing the recharge of steal. So recharge of steal is important, but also getting the daze off so you can potentially, you know, come up with another combo, or at least get off a little bit more damage is very important, especially if you're going to combo up with someone else, particularly maybe even a Revenant. So this is going to be a very useful skill. Then we've got DareDevil. So this is going to be a new line that's coming in for the Thief, really. And when I say new, you know, obviously the expansion was a while ago, but still, you know, it's different. You know, I haven't really put any Thief builds out that much. Thief is really the bottom of the end in terms of my own personal gameplay, and also really knowledge-wise. Like I still know about Thief. Obviously, I'm a caster. That's my job. But it's really I'm the most inexperienced with Thief, in all honesty. So let's go over this trait line. So again, access to the physical skill category. Obviously, you know that is in your skills. Brawler's tenacity. Really, really, really good. Obviously, your maximum endurance is increased. So there you go. You can see we have 3 dodges in DareDevil, of course, and that's going to be very useful for a couple of things. So, Brawler's Tenacity. Gain endurance when you first activate a physical skill. Physical skills have reduced cooldown. So obviously we've got physical skill right here with Channeled Vigor. Now some people in a lot of different games as well are going for Impact Strike, which is very useful for getting almost instant downstate kills. Because if an opponent is low on HP, for example, this will skip the downstate process and it will instantly put them into death if they are on low HP. I have to release some game footage to show you exactly what I mean about that. But basically, you know, at the moment in the Pro League and whatnot as well, Basilisk Venom still very, very strong. Your attacks, like it says, are unblockable, and it turns obviously the enemy into stone. So obviously being unblockable as well is very, very strong. And a second, you know, combo that up with your days, combo that up with other, you know, burst abilities, and even just, you know, auto attacking is just going to wreck your opponent, especially if they're on low HP, because the amount of buffs that come out from this build, which give you extra damage when people are below health threshold, etc., like Executioner. So, pulmonary impact is ridiculous. You can see, cause a rupture that deals massive damage when this skill ends. The ability cannot critically hit. So enemies that you interrupt suffer a pulmonary impact. And this is a lot of damage right here. It is very, very strong ability. So when you're able to get that interrupt off, of course, you're going to be doing a lot of extra damage. So, you know, when you steal and you're able to interrupt through dazing and whatnot, then you're going to be putting out a little bit of damage here through this trait as well. A little bit, it's quite a lot. And as well as doing your extra damage on the target. So, you know, in future, I want to try and bring in like a thief, proper Thief player, so we can actually talk about this a bit more in depth. But yeah, so basically the Thief is a very strong, just all-rounder at the moment. You know, it's very mobile, puts out a nice amount of damage, has a lot of issues in terms of getting involved in 1v1s and team fights, but you know, that's kind of always really been an issue. Thief isn't really about that. Thief/Daredevil, whatever you want to call it. It's about that mobility around the map and able to get decaps and able to +1 fights effectively. Things like, you know, team fights, they'll skirt around the sides using their short bow, of course, as well. So that's going to be very, very interesting to see how people are going to be able to, you know, cope with kind of the AoE cleave damage that comes out. Future changes, because we're seeing little mini changes coming out as well into PvP at the moment as well. But yeah, I mean, it's a really, really solid build, and obviously, you know, good all-rounder, and it's maybe a lot stronger than even people think or imagine currently. So Endurance Thief here says gain endurance when you successfully steal from an enemy, and then your dodge ability is replaced by a long-range dash that removes inhibiting conditions and grants swiftness when you dodge. Damage against you is reduced for a time after you dodge. So you can see there, we get the dash, we get the swiftness, all those conditions removed as well, chill, cripple, and mobilize. So that's going to be very useful in terms of your own survival. And you get an extra dodge, you know, so extra endurance regeneration as well comes out from Channeled Vigor. You also get it through the traits as well, as we saw before. You've also got your Shadow Step, of course, which is going to help you in terms of mobility and escape. Really, really useful, obviously, because it's one of your break stuns. And then we've got, obviously, Blinding Powder, so it's going to be blindness, but mainly for your stealth. Combo Blast Finisher as well. And then you've got your, obviously, Signet of Agility, so grants increased precision. And it, you know, refills your endurance and cures a condition for each nearby ally. So it's a bit of an endurance clear. Now this is one of the problems with Thief, obviously. They haven't got many stun breaks and they haven't got much condition removal. You know, we can see we've got movement impairing condition removal right here through, of course, Unhindered Combatant. But otherwise, you cannot see a lot of condition removal, and that's one of the problems that this build has. It's good that it still has, obviously, that kind of weakness. Obviously, you want to be in and out of fights quite quickly. You want to be +1ing on side nodes and even mid, or wherever you want to rotate. Rotations are so important for the thief, and map awareness as well. Even, you know, map awareness of the opposite team of where the thief is extremely important, because you can just play havoc with the team, especially if they haven't got a thief or even a revenant and you're playing ranked or unranked. You can run circles around your enemy because they're going to be extremely slow. Mesmers are going to have to force use their portals and stuff. So, you know, there's a lot of different uses for this build. Now, this is a very basic description for my channel. It's not massively in depth. I'm not going to go through any combinations or anything, but I'm just going basically through the build. Obviously, you know, pistol and dagger, you know, headshot, a very, very good amount of damage as well. Another good gap closer is your third skill, of course, which is going to be shadow shot. So you are going to be able to just shadow step to your opponent. So it's a good gap closer. Normally, you're not going to be using Heartseeker a lot in terms of damage. It's mainly for your combination in terms of getting stealth. Obviously, you know, I just attacked the target because it was being attacked. But, you know, dagger just does a ton of damage. Obviously, with your air and fire being around as well, you're going to be pulling off a lot of damage in combination with your traits, your skills, obviously your sigils and amulet, and your rune. So there's a good amount of synergy. There was a good amount of synergy in this build before anyway, but let's quickly talk about the variations as well that have come out. Now, obviously, as I said before, Magic Toker actually uses Rune of DareDevil. So obviously power and toughness, a little bit more tankiness from the toughness stat, of course, but also bringing out some crit when you've completed a dodge roll while in combat, of course. So, you know, making up for a little bit of that damage loss potentially that you get from Scholar. And then actually, instead of going for Blinding Powder, he goes for Bandit's Defense, which is going to give you even more endurance regain, which is going to be good because of that physical skill. As I said earlier, like when we were going through the traits, obviously you can get a knockdown as well, which is 2 seconds, but it's mainly for this block. I mean, it breaks another stun, so you've got another stun breaker, and then obviously you've got that endurance regeneration as well. The reason why that's quite good as well is because if you do happen to, of course, jump on, say, a Revenant. Now, Revenants are going to be running Retribution now instead of Invocation because of Faith, more than likely. So, you know, that's going to be a massive thing at the moment that Revenants have to change to, because if they're going up against a Thief, they want to be able to make sure that they're not going to be able to be bursted down, and they pick that Lion mainly because it's quite tanky, and also because there's a nice taunt on there as well, and stability. So if there's stability, they can't get interrupted as much, of course, because stability is obviously, you know, control effect. You don't affect stability in that way, but of course they can be ripped off beforehand, and then you can re-engage. But the thing is, if the thief gets taunted for 3 seconds, which is what happens in that retribution line, then they can potentially be taken down quite easily. And this isn't, because this is another stun break as well, that's going to help him even more in that situation. So you can see really why Magic Toker and other thieves might go for this. Again, there could be little bits and pieces here and there which I'm missing out, or maybe misinformation, but I feel like these are the reasons why. And I have talked to some thieves, you know, in Pro League and other players about this build, and these seem to be the main key important facts. So until I know more, or until I can actually get good at this and give some kind of gameplay, or maybe bring out a professional player, that is going to be it for this video. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you in the future. The bulwark gyro there on the bottom right hand side, and yeah, first of all, going over towards the trap, doing what I do normally, commenting on my own gameplay, of course. Not got Elixir B